Thank you, Prof. Colleagues from AAS, good afternoon once again, Prof. Good afternoon to all colleagues from AAS. We have our potential partners, Matthew Booth, Matt McGinley, and Tawanda Mandivo. They are here to offer us opportunities in medical communications. So I will ask Matthew to lead us, and Matt, I'm not sure who's going to go first between the two of you, but I will ask you to just lead us, give us the background, and give us all the details that we might need. If I could appeal to everyone, our senior students, to be free to ask questions on anything they need clarity on. This is an open, it's a potential partnership that we could have with this company, and I think it will provide us with great opportunities. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you, everyone. I will then put off my.
Thanks, Bikani. So welcome, everybody. My name is Matthew Booth, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Matt McGinley and Tawanda. And what we want to do is talk to you today about who we are at Inisio Medical. But before we do that, we need to talk about the industry that we're in. So we want to talk to you about medcoms as an industry for people with higher health sciences degrees. And then we'll talk to you a little bit about who we are as a company and what opportunities we have in that company. So first of all, we'll give you some personal introductions. I'll give you a bit of a background to myself, and then Matt and Tawanda can do the same. And then we want to tell you about what medical communications is and what it as an industry offers to the pharmaceutical industry. And then we'll talk to you about Inisio Medical and the agencies within Inisio Medical. And we'll talk to you about the teams, the clients, and our level of expertise. Then we want to talk to you about the positions that we have open, particularly in South Africa. And then we'll talk to you about the career progression opportunities that we have within those positions and the training that we provide to support that career progression. And then to give some examples there, we're going to show you, well, you'll hear from Tawanda, who's on our team in South Africa, but also show you some examples of other team members and their journeys that they've been on with us since we opened our South Africa team. And then we'll tell you about our South Africa footprint as well, where we've been hiring, where we've got office space, and what the future plans are. So let me give you a little bit of background to myself. So my title is Senior Vice President Global Therapy Lead. The word therapy refers to gene therapy because that's my academic background. That's where I did most of my academic research after my PhD. And I work at Apothecom, which is one of the agencies within Inisio Medical. And you'll learn a bit more about that in a moment. So after I did my PhD, I went to UCL in London to do 8 years of postdoctoral research in gene therapy. And then after that, I started to get exposure to the publications industry. I worked for a few years at a publication at Springer, and then I went into a medical communications agency, and I've been in that environment for about 15 years now. In that time, I've gained quite a lot of expertise in various different therapy areas. So I've been involved in large anti-infectives accounts, cardiovascular accounts, pain, oncology, respiratory. At the moment, I'm involved in a large ophthalmology account, and we're growing our gene therapy business, utilizing some of my academic research as well. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Matt McGinley. Oh, I should add that I've also been involved in starting teams in new locations as well. So in a previous role, I started a team in India and then started a team in China. And since coming back to Apothecom for the second time, this is my second stint here, I've been working with Matt McGinley to set up the South Africa team over the last couple of years. So that's a good segue into Matt, actually.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. I'm also Matt. To put it bluntly, I do the recruitment here. So unlike all of you guys on this call, I do not have a scientific background, although I have worked in the pharma industry for the entirety of my career so far. For the last 16 years, I've been recruiting scientists into a range of different roles in the pharma industry, though mostly into medical communications, medical writing types of roles. So for anyone who's got a background in science, particularly folks with advanced academic backgrounds, I'm a good port of call when it comes to anyone who needs advice on how to prepare yourself for a role in industry, be it, you know, what roles are available, how to position yourself, how to put your CV together. That's all the kind of stuff I can help with. I joined Apothecom about 3.5 years ago, and one of the main things I've been involved in alongside Matt Booth is to put together the South Africa team. It's been a very exciting thing to be involved in. So far, it's been very successful, fingers crossed, touch wood. And yeah, it'd be great to talk to you guys more about what we're doing and the plans we have to grow the team even further. So yeah, and with that in mind, I'll pass on to Tawanda.
Well, thanks, Matt. Well, my name is Tawanda, and I can relate with almost everyone in this audience because I spent 12 years of my training at UKZN, and I have a PhD in virology. And then prior to that, I studied Master of Medical Science and Medical Microbiology. And I also hold a medicinal chemistry honors degree from Rhodes University. And before that, I was also a UKZN student and majored in biochemistry and chemistry for my undergraduate. So basically, I have about 6 years of experience as a freelancer because that was my hobby when I was doing my postgraduate studies. And then helping other researchers with publication support services. And right now I have approximately a year that I've spent with Apothecom working on different therapy accounts that focus on publication in the areas such as dermatology and respiratory disorders and neurology. And for my PhD, I studied at UKZN at the Africa Health Research Institute, focusing on broadly neutralizing antibodies for their potential for HIV cure and prevention. And this work has also, like a typical student, has been subject to presentation at various prestigious congresses like the IAS, International AIDS Society, and the Collaboration for AIDS Vaccine Discovery, CAVD. And also in my time as a student, and I am a medicinal chemist, and I've co-authored several articles in therapy areas of malaria and tuberculosis. And during my time as a master's student at UKZN, I developed this system that we call the Lightforge system, which is a real-time PCR system that can help detect drug resistance in Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And this was a highlight in my journey also at UKZN because I got awarded the South African Association for the Advancement of Science S2A3 medal for having written the best dissertation in all scientific disciplines at UKZN in 2016. As you can imagine, this also sparked the ignition, like, you know, towards shaping my direction in communicating science and writing, and subsequently medical communication. So I'm looking forward to this discussion. Thank you. Over to you back, Matt.
Thanks, Tawanda, and thanks, Matt. So before we tell you a little bit more about our company and what we have available, I thought it was really quite important for this audience to give a summary of what medical communications is. Well, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide because essentially any company that describes themselves as a medical communications agency is going to cover one or more of these pillars in terms of what they offer to their clients. Okay, so In actual fact, most medical communications companies will probably focus on these two middle pillars: scientific communications and publications, and medical education. But because of the size of the Inisio medical team, and because of the level of expertise within that team, we offer our clients a broader range of services. So if we look at the left-hand side of this slide, we're able to offer our clients sort of long-term strategic medical planning. What that means is, before a pharma company or a biotech company publishes any of their data, they really ought to have a strategic medical communications plan, meaning all of the stakeholders on the client side in that pharma company ought to be aligned on what they want to say about their research program, their pipeline, their candidate products, but not just what they want to say, but who they want to say it to, when they want to say it, and what vehicle to use to deliver that story. Because at the end of the day, there's a very strong rationale for any clinical study being done. It's always supposed to meet an unmet medical need. And so that part of the story needs to be communicated really effectively and in a timely fashion. So we help our clients put that medical communication plan together. We bring all the stakeholders together and we look at all of the evidence they have and all of the evidence they expect to have. So there's an aspirational element to it as well. And we put that plan together. But then, of course, you have to deliver on that plan. And then we start to move from left to right across this slide and look at the individual projects, which are really the external facing deliverables of that strategic plan. So the second pillar, the scientific communications and publications, this is where we support with the writing of peer-reviewed manuscripts for publication in respected scientific journals. Now, that doesn't mean we're authors. Many of you on this call will know the process of publishing your own data. To be an author on a scientific paper is not to have written the paper. It's to have designed the study. It's to have conducted the study, collected the data, analyzed the data, interpreted the data, and then either written or contributed to the writing of the paper and take responsibility for what's in it. So as you can imagine, when our clients give us a clinical study report that summarizes everything that's been done in a clinical trial, we're then just the writing support. We weren't involved in designing the study. We weren't involved in collecting the data. So we don't actually qualify to be authors, but we can support in a very open and transparent way the writing of those manuscripts, supporting the pharma sponsor and supporting the principal investigators. And nothing is hidden. Everything is open and transparent. So as you're probably well aware, every scientific paper has an acknowledgement section. In that section, we're mentioned, where the medical writer is named specifically, their qualification is mentioned, which agency they work for, so Apothecom or Inisio Medical is mentioned, and who paid for their services, meaning the pharmaceutical sponsor, that's mentioned as well. So everything is transparent, open, visible, and none of it is hidden. Further on the right-hand side of this slide, we have medical education. So that's separate from peer-reviewed publications. That's more the kind of conference presentations, conference symposia, meetings or advisory board meetings where pharma companies pull experts together to get their advice on how they should move forward with a product or a study or a disease area. And we can support with anything they need for that. So we've got project managers in logistics roles to support with those meetings, but we need medical writers to draft the agendas, to draft the slide content, to draft the meeting reports. And some of those are public, some of those are confidential and stored behind firewalls. And then on the far right-hand side, we have access pathways and outcomes. So many of you may be aware that the journey to market of a product, of a medicinal product, does not end when the manufacturer receives approval from either the FDA or the European body or other such regulatory authorities. It still requires somebody with the money to agree to pay for it. And so that's how we describe market access. It's telling the value story to the people who are actually paying for these approved drugs to make sure that doctors working in hospitals are allowed to prescribe it. They have the authority to prescribe it, and it's within budget. And we also work on patient-related outcomes as well. So it's important that a drug doesn't just reduce symptoms of a disease or maybe even provide a curative benefit. It's important that those patients also have an improved quality of life and have improved utility and functionality and mobility. And those kinds of things are reported and published as well. So we work on all of these 4 pillars in Inisio Medical. Sometimes our clients come to us just wanting one of these types of services, but quite often, because we're working with global clients with large budgets, as you might imagine, they're the pharmaceutical industry, they make a lot of money from their products, they come to us wanting the whole package. And so we have to provide an integrated solution. So we have experts in strategy planning, we have experts in scientific publications, we have experts in access pathways, and it's important that those people are able to work together, talk to each other, plan together, and work with our clients as an integrated team. In addition to that, we also have a data and analytics team, and we're quite a lead player in this field because a lot of medical information is now supported by analytics programs, algorithms, AI software, and we have a team of coders and programmers that actually develop bespoke analytics solutions for our clients that support all of this medical writing work that we do for them. So hopefully that gives you a good snapshot of medical communications as an industry, and also a glimpse into what our medical writers do in these roles for Inisio Medical. So with that, I'm going to move on to who we are as a company. I don't know, Matt, if you want to take these next 2 slides, or I can carry on. It's up to you.
I'll jump in, and then you can correct. You can add in anything I missed.
I'm sure it won't be a correction, Matt.
No, so yes, we're Inisio Medical. We are the world's largest medical communications company, which is exciting. So Inisio Medical has about 2,100 employees globally, of which about 700 have PhDs or equivalent qualifications. We currently operate in 13 countries, soon to be 14, which is exciting for us. Now, Inisio Medical is made up of 3 medcoms agencies that used to be competitors, but now are all part of the same big happy family. Those 3 agencies are Nucleus Global, Ashfield Medcoms, and Apothecom. Now, I appreciate these names might not mean a great deal to you guys here, but if you work in medcoms, these are all very well-known companies. Now, how it works is if you're hired into our company, you work in one of these 3 agencies. So you become either a Nucleus employee, an Ashfield employee, an Apothecom employee, and your day-to-day working life is mostly self-contained within that agency. Like the colleagues you work with day-to-day will be in that agency. The clients you work with will be the clients of that agency. However, there are a lot of consistencies across Inisio Medical. So if you go into our South Africa team, things like job titles, salary bandings, benefits, they'll all be the same across Inisio Medical. For our office locations, they're for everyone. When we do company social events, they're for everyone. So you've got your kind of life on the agency level, and then you've got a bunch of consistencies across Inisio Medical overall. Why don't we move on to the next slide now, Matt, unless I missed anything. Yeah, so here you'll see a number of stats around our organization in terms of headcount, the countries we operate in, etc. 29 office locations. Now, if you look at medcoms overall, it's mostly sort of US and UK focused. That's where the vast majority of our industry is based right now, and so you'll see that reflected in where our offices are. But one thing we are definitely doing as Inisio Medical is sort of targeting to grow in new countries, and that was sort of a key motivator for us expanding to South Africa, trying to take medcoms from an industry that's very US and UK centric and expand to new talent pools where our industry didn't previously have much of a presence. Now you'll see on the right hand side of this slide the split in terms of the different therapy areas we work in. So because the work we do is broadly dependent on the development work that pharma and biotechs are doing, you'll see there's a lot of oncology there. Pharma companies obviously develop a lot of drugs in oncology. We do a lot of work there. CNS, respiratory, infectious diseases, immunology. We do a lot of work in rare disease as well. Matt, do you have anything to add to this? Because I'm sure you have.
Well, really just to say that we've spotted themes and trends within the candidates that come to us from South Africa. Many of them have infectious disease experience, and I can reassure you that we have some very large infectious disease and in particular vaccines accounts. So we can find a home for you if that's where you want to specialize, if you want to carry on being an infectious disease expert. But as this slide suggests, if you want to expand your horizons, learn new things, get exposure to different therapy areas and become an expert in something new, we can offer you that as well.
Yeah, and just to lead on from that, when we recruit medical writers, we look for people specifically with PhDs, ideally PhDs is what we look for. And the reason that we look to hire folks like yourselves isn't necessarily for the specific therapy expertise you may have gained in your studies, although if we can take advantage of that, we will. What we really look for, though, are folks who can get up to speed on new therapy areas in a fairly quick amount of time. When you work in med comms over the first few years, you'll probably work across a wide variety of different therapy areas. And so, whilst we definitely try and take advantage of the specialities our candidates have when we bring them into the company, the likelihood is you'll get exposure to areas that, you might not have been involved in so far in your academic careers. Great. And yeah, so we're hiring in South Africa. So let me tell you a bit about why we started looking at South Africa in the first place, because that might be of interest to you. So I mentioned to you earlier, we're looking to expand to new countries, and our industry is very focused on US and UK. The talent market's very competitive, and so for us, if we can expand out to new territories, it means that we can grow teams that hopefully stay together for longer. And so Matt and I started recruiting in South Africa back at the end of 2020. Started small. But by the end of the first year, we had a team of around 20-25 people, and since then everything's just sort of exploded, really. And as of the 3rd of October, we should be on around 85-90 people in our South Africa team. So it's been a fantastic journey to go on so far, and there's a lot more to come. So in terms of what we look for, so we're looking for people with academic backgrounds in biomedical sciences, preferably master's degrees or PhD level qualifications. Now, the role that we hire for primarily in South Africa is medical writing. That means it kind of helps if you enjoy writing and enjoy writing about science specifically. Now, one of the key things to know, though, is although if you work with us, it's going to be a very writing focused role, the role does involve collaboration at every stage of the process. And so with every piece of writing you do, you're collaborating on that with colleagues. There's various different people that feed back to you on the work that you do, and you have regular calls with clients as well. So although it's a writing role, you're dealing with lots of different people. You're also dealing with different people around the world. So there are some teams South African hires that work with teams in the UK. There are some South African hires that will work with teams in the US, and so you're interacting with folks across Inizio Medical on a regular basis. Now, with our South Africa team, pretty much everyone who joins us, it'll be their first role in medical writing. So we've got a very well-developed training scheme that everyone goes through. The training is focused mostly on the first 12 weeks of your employment. It includes a lot of background reading and sort of virtual classroom-based training sessions, and we'll tell you more about those a bit later. And just to clarify, we offer permanent roles. So we're set up as an employer in South Africa. So you get a permanent contract with our South African entity. And the roles have competitive salary and also a full benefits package as well, including things like pension, life assurance, bonus, holidays, everything you'd expect from an employer in South Africa. Matt, are you going to take this one, or do you want me to do it?
I can take this one.
Great.
Yeah, so what we wanted to reassure you on is the career progression for medical writers once you join Inizio Medical. So as Matt mentioned, we're not expecting many candidates to have a great deal of experience in the medical writing industry prior to coming to us. So most, if not all, would join us as associate medical writers. But what you can see on the slide here is the typical career progression of an associate medical writer, moving through to medical writer and then to senior medical writer. You don't see the progression beyond senior medical writer here, because once you get to that level, really it stops being a linear progression and other avenues open up to you. You could move further down the writing route into a principal medical writer or a medical director role. You could move into the strategy side and become a strategy consultant if you like that kind of collaborative relationship with your clients. You could even move into the client services side, into more of an account director role, where you're sort of managing the program, managing the budgets, managing the resourcing, if you like that kind of approach to work. So what we've got on here is the sort of typical career progression through to senior medical writer. What happens after that is really up to you. What we wanted to highlight here that you can see under the title is that this is non-competitive. The reason I wanted to mention this is because we've had a few candidates come through recently who've been asking how many people they would be up against for promotion, should they be eligible for promotion. And what we have to tell candidates, and what I'm telling you now, is that it's not competitive. It's merit-based. If you join us as an associate medical writer and you excel in the first year, you demonstrate proactivity, you demonstrate an aptitude to learning and an ability to apply that training in a client-facing role, then there's no reason why you won't get promoted. And it doesn't matter how many other people are being promoted to medical writer at the same time. If you've demonstrated your abilities, you've demonstrated your talents, then we will be more than happy to promote you to medical writer. It's also not time-based either. Typically, if you've been an associate medical writer for around 12 months and you've done very well in the role, you can expect a promotion fairly soon after that. But generally, it's on merit. If you demonstrate the quality of the work you're doing and you've got happy clients, you've got happy team members, you will progress. And we've got a few bullet points under here demonstrating the difference between those roles. As an associate medical writer, you're involved in a lot of training, you're in a lot of calls with your teams, but you are exposed to clients and you are exposed to a variety of projects so that we can figure out where your talents lie. As a medical writer, you then start to not just be client facing, you tend to be the sort of the primary client contact for the projects that you're on. And instead of contributing to other people's projects that they're leading, you start to lead your own projects and have other people feed into your projects. And then as senior medical writer, you tend to lead programs rather than individual projects. So you might be the lead on a particular clinical study, and out of that study, there might be a number of conference abstracts and posters, there might be a number of manuscripts, there might be related review papers, etc., etc. So you might be the lead for all of that, and you might be overseeing freelancers, you might be overseeing associate medical writers supporting with that program. So that's how the career, that's how your career and the associated responsibilities develop over time. You'll get reviews with your manager every 6 months. Well, you'll be talking to your manager on a weekly basis, but your sort of progress towards your objectives, they'll be reviewed every 6 months. You'll receive ongoing training, didactic training, task-based training, lunch and learns, etc. We'll go into that on the next slide. And then as you develop through to a senior role, we'll be offering you leadership opportunities. And there's a whole leadership program that we can put you on as well, if that's where you want to take your career. Anything to add to that, Matt?
No, I think that just about covers it.
Lovely, thanks. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the comprehensive training curriculum that we have for our associate medical writers. This isn't the sum total of our training program. This is just what the associate medical writers are exposed to in the first few months of joining us. In fact, we try and fit this in with the South Africa team. We try and fit this in the first 8 weeks, because in South Africa employment law, you're restricted to a 3-month probation period. So in that probation period, we want to give you all of your training, but also have you demonstrate the ability to apply that training to billable client work, and also start building a relationship with your clients as well. So we have to get all of this training into a pretty tight window. So this is mainly didactic training, although there are some task-based pieces in here. So if you look on the left-hand side, we cover publication planning, we cover congresses and manuscripts. Some of the first few jobs you'll be doing would be data checking the work of others to make sure that the data and the references are all accurate. We also offer plain language summaries to our clients so that The information is accessible to non-experts, whether they're medics who are not experts in a field, or whether it's patients or patient carers. It's a very particular skill, learning to draft those. And then we have various other modules on medical education and how to tell a scientific story. We've got some slide deck training and various other pieces here that really cover the full spectrum of what you'd be expected to do as an associate medical writer. So now we've covered the role and the career progression and the training that we offer, I think it's probably a good time for you to hear some stories of the team, in particular from Tuanda.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah. So just to add that there are several ways in a path that people can decide on a career in medical communication, becoming medical writers. So interacting with some of my colleagues who joined with on roles as associate medical writers, they have shared, like, their different experiences, including my own experiences. So these are some of the paths that they took. For example, if I start with my colleague, Emma, she has got a background in cell biology. She pursued a master's degree on that. And then she went on further to pursue a PhD in oceanography. And then during that time, as a grad student, that's when she realized that, academia might not be a best fit for her, but then she still had passion for science. So she started looking for other roles where she can continue being a scientist, but outside academia. And then that's how she ended up with a role as an associate medical writer with Apothecom. And she said that the transition for her from academia to medical writing has been very smooth because of the comprehensive training program that Matt shared earlier, and very supportive colleagues that help you get up to speed, even you haven't got any writing experience prior to joining. And then we have some individuals like my colleagues, Kim, who never knew anything outside academia. They're only comfortable with being in the academia space. But then they ended up, with an opportunity to apply, and they found that the application was very quick and efficient, and then they got an offer. And then again, the transition is also shared with the same experience that Emma had. And Kim also says that the transition for her was very smooth and supportive, and comprehensive training program that's within the first few months, and they were up to speed and comfortable on the role. And also Melissa has a background in toxicology, and she's been working in occupational health, and also has biochemistry background. And she's also passionate about science. And that's when she realized at some point, she probably can advance science communicating it rather than wearing a lab coat. And then that's when she had to put her pipette in the drawer and then pursue medical writing as an option. So that's the journey that also Melissa took. And similar, like my story is also not unique because like I shared earlier, as a postgraduate student, I always imagine myself, I'm going to carry on and complete my PhD, continue to do postdoc and start my own lab. But because I never knew that another alternative or an alternative career path was available for scientists with higher degrees. And then until a friend of mine introduced me to Apothecom, and then applied. And when I got into working with in Apothecom, and then I realized that medical communication is actually a hidden field and it's a hidden profession. And I discovered that, it is a very, it's an industry that is growing so rapidly, and there's so many opportunities for people with medical science degrees and biological sciences. And like everyone, with the stories that I've shared earlier, also my transition was also very smooth. And then I like the idea of working flexible hours and working remotely, and also with the supportive colleagues and comprehensive training that helps me get up to speed. So yeah, although people may have different backgrounds, and then I realized that, all of us kind of have a similar journey. And also because of the training that, the program has, you can get up to speed and enjoy the role. And I've been really enjoying the role. And yeah, over to you again, Matt. Yeah.
Thanks, Twanda. And I'm sure Twanda will be happy to answer any questions at the end related to his experience of joining Apothecom and the kind of work that he's been doing as well. So, Matt.
Okay, yeah, this is me. So our current footprint in South Africa. So as of now, it's about 70 people working for us across the country. And we've got a new intake starting with us on the 3rd of October, which will take us to about 90 people. Now, one important thing to know is we started the South Africa team during COVID. And so when we started recruiting, there was a global pandemic on, and the last thing we were going to do was start employing people in an office environment. So when we started the team, everyone was working entirely remotely. And that sort of continued on for the most part. Now you will see on this slide sort of the various parts of the country where we have folks based in South Africa. As you might expect, the biggest population centres for us are Cape Town and Joburg, although Durban is fast catching up, isn't it, Matt? There's the headcount we have in Durban. I don't have the exact figures, but by the time the next intake's in, then I think Durban's going to be rivaling the other two places in terms of number of hires.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, crucially for us, it doesn't really matter whereabouts in the country you're based. So if you're in Durban right now, but in the future, you might want to go and move elsewhere in South Africa, that's absolutely fine with us. We're pretty much location agnostic. So yeah, and alongside the places I've mentioned, we've also got folks in Bloemfontein, in Port Elizabeth, Kimberley, and other locations as well. And I think one other thing to note is that, if we do, the next slide will mention a couple of our office locations. Maybe we can move over to that now, actually. So here we've got our office space that we've opened recently in South Africa. So we've got some space in Johannesburg and some in Cape Town as well. Crucially, just to mention, so the office space we have in South Africa is flexible office space. This means that we're not expecting our team members to go into an office every day. The office space is there as and when you want it. You can book a desk and go in. And if someone wants to stay remote, that's absolutely fine with us. If you want to be 100% remote, that's fine. Although it does help if you're based close to an office for when load shedding happens, you can go in and work in an uninterrupted fashion. Now, because the Durban team is growing so much, we are looking into office space at the moment, and I believe that Matt and myself and some others will be looking at some potential offices in Durban next month, which will be exciting. And if there are other parts of the country as well where we have a growing population of people in the country, then we'll look at opening office space there as well too. I mean, it's from our perspective, if there's a demand for it, if we've got growing teams in various locations, then why wouldn't we look into it? It just makes perfect sense for us to do that.
Yeah, the Workshop 17 are a large company, as many of you are probably aware, and so these are just two examples of offices, but we're running a credit scheme with them at the moment, which means that we can use any of their offices anywhere. These are the two offices that people have tended to gravitate towards more often than not, but the credit scheme means we can use them wherever they have offices. Unfortunately, they don't have offices in Durban, so we're looking at other companies in Durban, which is why we need to go and scope them out first to see who provide the best environment for our team. So I do want to open the floor to questions. Before I do that, I just want to highlight the website where you can learn more about the medical division of Inisio, and also Matt's email address to contact if you are interested in applying for any of the roles that we have open. So with that, I'll open the floor to questions. Hopefully you have many questions. We would be delighted to answer anything that you want to ask that's within our power to answer. So do please go ahead.
I think there were some questions in the chat if you'd like to start there.
Okay. Let me go to the top. Can someone enrolling for PhD in optometry who likes academic writing join the team? Absolutely, yes. So as I mentioned, we have a very large ophthalmology account that's with one of the large global players in ophthalmology treatment, and that's a publications and medical education and strategy support account. But also we recently won a piece of work with a very small biotech with a gene therapy in ophthalmology. And so we're quite the experts in the ophthalmology space. So there is a place for people with that expertise. But if you want to join us and not focus on ophthalmology, it's still a suitable background to join us as an associate medical writer, and we can put you in a different field if that's where you want to go.
Just one thing to add to that, you know, when it comes to our associate medical writer roles, we ideally need people to have completed their PhDs before they are eligible to join. You don't have to have been awarded your PhD yet, but you need to have been told that you passed at the very least. If you haven't got to that stage yet, it's probably a little bit too early. I mean, I'm always happy to, you know, as a recruitment person, I'm always happy to sort of have chats with folks who aren't quite there yet but want to find out more. But yeah, just to be clear, you need to have been told at the least that you passed before we can start to accelerate into formal interviews or anything like that.
Yeah. And
hidden in that question also was, can this be taken on as part-time work or is it full-time work?
It is full-time work, yeah. And that's one of the reasons why we need candidates to have finished their PhD. It would be incredibly difficult, and I certainly wouldn't advise it, to try and do a full-time job as a medical writer with us and try and write a PhD thesis and prepare for an examination. So that's why we need those qualifications. And yes, they are full-time positions. So that's in South Africa, that's a 40-hour per week position.
There's another question here, that what is the age limit?
There is no age limit.
Very young. Everybody there seems very young.
If you many of our candidates in South Africa have recently qualified from a PhD. Okay, so it is a young crowd. However, we have employed someone who is a qualified medic and has been in the healthcare PR industry for a number of years. She's older than me, and we took her on in a senior role, aligned her to a US account, and she's been very successful in the role. So no, short answer, no age limit.
Good, then you can read Adekunle's question from his background there.
Okay, specializing in injury epidemiology and prevention at doctoral level. Is there a chance for me? You have the correct qualifications by the looks of it. I don't know the details of an injury epidemiology and prevention qualification, but it's in the right field, it's at the right level. Absolutely no problem. If you're interested in the positions we've described today, I'd welcome your application.
I think to give you a background of your audience, the majority of people here are PhD students at the moment. And a couple of weeks ago, we ran another talk on alternatives to the lab and spoke to somebody who's got her own company in Cape Town. But I think the importance here for the cohort of students who are present is to realize that why amongst the PhD attributes, and the South African PhD attributes align very closely to the UK standards for doctorateness. A lot of it has to do with communicating science. So just to move away from your company and job opportunities, Can you talk to us for a few minutes about the importance of science communication, the scales of science communication, communicating to the lay public, communicating to the specialist public, communicating in terms of policy, etc.?
Absolutely, yeah. And our pharma and biotech clients are very keen on making sure that what they want to communicate gets to the right audiences at the right time and in the right way. And you've hit the nail on the head there by mentioning the public, the lay public, the patients and their caregivers, because there has been an increased focus on that in recent years. There's been a focus on pharma companies providing lay patient summaries or plain language summaries of their clinical trials prior to them completing, prior to publishing the data, just having descriptions of them online that are non-expert friendly. That's become a legal requirement as of January this year. So there's an increase there, and then they followed through on that by then making sure that there is a non-expert summary accompanying the data publications as well. So many medical journals now accept a plain language summary of the very technical scientific data that you normally get in a scientific publication. So we're also tasked with developing those layperson summaries, and they can take a number of formats. Sometimes they can be written, sometimes they can be infographic, so you need to have a creative mindset. Sometimes they can be plain language summaries in video format presented by the lead author, and we would then script those presentations as well. So there is a very timely focus on effective styles of communication to a variety of audiences, more now than there ever was before. Similarly, healthcare professionals are not just qualified doctors with a license to prescribe. Obviously, you have nurses, you have specialist nurses, you have pharmacologists at various different levels, and they need to receive the same information, but in a different way as well, that speaks to their knowledge level, that speaks to their role within their healthcare institute. And so we have programs that speak to them as well. So yes, in short, our medical writers need to acquire skills in communicating information to a variety of audiences, and our clients pay us to do that and pay us to be experts in that. And I think having a PhD demonstrates that you have expertise in communicating a program of research, not just one experiment, but a program of research to a variety of audiences. So we expect people with PhDs to have communicated their program of research to their peers at their academic institute, to their superiors in their institute, but also on the international stage at international conferences as well, to world leading experts in their field. And to do those various different styles of communication effectively, you have to prepare in a different way. And so PhD students, MSc students, research MSc students have that talent. The other thing that we're looking for in PhD graduates, and that you get from completing a PhD, is managing your own time and managing your own projects. Because in this industry, we don't micromanage people. Tuanda will testify to that. Once you've received your training, you're sort of expected to get on with it. And you're not just going to have one project at a time. You're going to have maybe 5, 6, 7 projects at a time, as well as lots of other little things that you might have volunteered for as well. So you're going to need to be able to manage your own time, manage your own projects, understand the importance of deadlines, and understand the importance of team communication. And we think people that have completed a PhD demonstrate all of those skills.
Yes, at that point, one would assume that they have developed a very good work ethic and a self-discipline to be able to get on with things. I think that for people who are wanting a career change, if you're a clinician, not many clinicians leave their field for writing, and that's probably because they have a calling. But there are some people in the labs who want to look for an alternative, and I honestly do feel that this is a way of remaining intellectually engaged with science at the cutting edge. And that's how I feel my job is. I'm able to stay at the forefront of various aspects of pediatrics, genetics, orthopedics, etc. And it's incredibly stimulating. It's the kind of job that it's a privilege to have. I'm going to ask again, are there any questions from the participants? Anybody interested in asking anything about writing? The address, Matt McGinley's address was put up in the chat. So somebody asked for it again. It's matt.mcginley@medistrava.com. If anybody is keen, but any of my PhD students in the audience, not yet. You have to wait until you've finished.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see another message has come up. See if that's a question. No, Tam said it was interesting. Would you like to close, Matt McGinley? Would you like to say anything before I close the meeting? I see Bakani has left us.
The only thing I'd say to you guys is that, you know, with a lot of you guys now, it's not going to be the right time for you. But if you ever just want to have a chat about, you know, long-term plans, feel free to give me a shout. My job is literally to talk to people like you about your career options, and I'm always open to having a conversation. It doesn't have to be based on, you know, us recruiting you in the short term. The way that we approach recruitment in South Africa, one thing we've not covered off yet is that we do this in intakes. So every year there'll be 3 different groups of people we recruit. They'll be on set days. So give me a shout, you know, if it's not the right time now, but it'll be the right time, you know, in a year's time, 18 months time, however long, you know, we can start that conversation now. So don't hesitate to reach out. Always happy to have that conversation.
Yeah, I would just add to that I want to reassure you, we're not here to steal the brightest and best away from the best academic institutions in South Africa. What we're saying is that we recognise that academic research, bench research, is not for everybody. I'm a prime example of that. It took me an unusually long amount of time, 8 years, to realise that. But yes, the nature of bench work didn't sit well with my sort of short attention span personality. So I needed a sort of a faster turnover rate of work and more variety in focus. And so it's those kinds of people really that we're looking to attract. So thank you very much.
Yeah, would you like to make a final comment?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, this is just to make everyone, because for me as a graduate student, as a PhD student, I never knew that there was an alternative option in careers in science until like I came across Apothecom and Nisio. So I understand, like, you know, reiterating what Matt has said, there are many like me, we share stories as PhD students, that, you know, maybe academia might not be for everyone. So this is just to create an awareness that, you know, there is a great opportunity that is also equally intellectually stimulating, comparable to being on the bench side. So yeah, so that's what I can just share with you. For me, like, you know, I was shared with me, I was very good at doing my chores in academia, but it wasn't the right fit for me. So yeah, so that's I'm so grateful that I stumbled upon this option, and I'll be very happy if others can also tap into this opportunity should they share the similar interest as me. Yeah.
If I can just come in and make a point, this is not a career choice that you make only if lab work is not good for you. It's a career choice that you can make for many other reasons. It could be life is happening. It could be for people that have started a family and the lab is just not allowing for proper family work. But I think what is important to know is that's not the end of academia for you. If you have been a writer for a decade and you want to get back into the lab, you will have an incredible CV. So while you are doing this, keep your academic CV going, because when you go back, you have got such a wide and deep experience of science. And I'm sure if you want to go back to academia, you'll be taken back with open arms.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even like you just said, because mostly from the academic program, we generate a lot of data. And with this role, you get an idea of how to express yourself in writing, which is very crucial in like writing maybe grants. If you decide at a stage that want to go back to the bench, you're able to become a much more successful leader in science, so in academia. So again, having to experience this as an option, and also you get a chance to learn another side of science that you might not have learned comprehensively in your training as a graduate student. Yeah.
Well, it just leaves me to thank Matt and Tawanda for taking the time to introduce this opportunity to our PhD students in the School of Clinical Medicine, or the College of Health Sciences. Just to let the students know that the talk that was scheduled for today will be run next week. So next week, we will be looking at the ethics and application and problems that occur in ethics applications. And then next week's talk will be pushed into October, and that was going to be on grant writing. So we'll see you all together again. Remember, Matt, if you want to follow up on this, email Matt McGinley, and we'll see you all at the same time, same place next week. Thank you for attending, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Prof.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.